Hey guys, welcome back to the channel, and today we're going to be reacting to
Culture shocks as an American living in Italy.
One thing that was really different for me when I first got here was that a lot of businesses close for a certain amount of hours in the afternoon. So it's really common for small shops or restaurants to close between 2 and 4 p.m. or 5 p.m. Basically a few hours in the afternoon, and they reopen again. A lot of smaller shops typically have a break between 2 and 4:30 or 2 and 5, so you always have to check online if you want to go somewhere. Because for example, one time I wanted to go print something out, so I had to go to a print shop, but they were closed during this amount of time, so I had to choose to go before or after. So things like that, I'm just not used to, because in the US we don't have that. The stores are open all day. And then as far as restaurants, they basically have their lunch hour.
I think maybe because also stores here, like especially like the print stores that she mentions, the big businesses. There, I feel like maybe it's more like mom and pop shops. So you go, it's your business. You want to take a lunch, you take a lunch. You know?
And then they close and reopen for dinner. So a lot of times, especially if you're going to a small town, if you end up arriving around like 1 or 2, you should think about getting lunch right away, because as I mentioned, if you end up somewhere and you're there around 3 or 4, it's going to be really hard to find a food place. I feel like in the US, it doesn't really matter if you have a late lunch, you can always find something, but here it's a little bit different. And speaking of meals, the second thing that was a culture shock for me was that dinner here...
Also maybe, here you want to stay open all day long to optimize, because people usually lease the business space. There, I feel like, especially small business, is passed through generations. So you kind of own. So you own the land. You don't have to work to pay off the rent. So you want to close for your little restaurant for lunch, or that gap, because it's kind of dead from like 3 to 6. It's kind of dead out. Nobody really like eats at that time. So it does make sense to not operate. But here you. Even like if 3 customers come in, you still generate some sort of revenue, whereas there you don't really need to, because the rent is not pressing you, So I get it.
Happens a lot later. In the US, I think it's totally normal to have dinner around 6 or 6:30, maybe even earlier. I think whenever I go home, my parents have dinner around like 5:30 or 6, which now to me seems so early. But here in Italy, it's totally normal to have dinner around 8 or 8:30, which when I first got here, I was like, how? I'm so hungry. Like, I want to eat at 6 p.m. And still, especially if I'm making dinners at home, sometimes I will have dinner at 6:30 because I'm hungry and I just want to eat dinner. But if you go out to dinner, it's very common to make reservations around 8 or 8:30. But also here, it's very common to do aperitivo, which is like drinks and a little snack before dinner. Usually when I do aperitivo, I end up just having that for my meal, because you can get like a huge board of meats and cheeses. It depends. Sometimes aperitivo does become my dinner, but a lot of Italians kind of have it before, so that happens around like 5 or 6. And then that way it can like tide you over for dinner. The third culture shock is that people stare here a lot. People are always just staring. I always feel like
I think we saw in one of the other videos, they said like staring here, it's not like, doesn't mean that they like you, like into you. Whereas here in the States, like maybe it's more considered, like if somebody stares, like they're more into you.
Eyes on me.
Like they're
and a lot of
attracted
people
to you,
say, like, it's because people can tell that you're a foreigner or you're blonde, whatever. It makes sense. But I've just also heard from my other American friends who are also very aware of the fact that people are constantly staring. And I've heard other people who live in Germany, for example, like other foreigners who live in Germany, and they say in Germany it's even worse. Like, people really, really stare. So that's kind of like the joke that I've heard as well. I just don't understand why. Like, I think it's just acceptable for people to just stare at you. I mentioned in a previous video that I was on a bus once with my friend, and this woman was just like, when we walked by her on the bus, like turned around to keep staring at my friend specifically, not like the both of us. She just...
Guys, why is that? Let us know in the comments here. Why is that? Because I don't know, it's kind of weird. Like, so when someone just stares at you, I don't know, I just kind of... I don't know.
but it's like in Lithuania.
I don't know.
I can understand staring just to see the person when they first come in, to see the existing in this space, but then the whole time...
I don't know.
I don't think this is the whole time. I don't know if it's
hard
exaggeration.
for me to say, but I feel like Lithuania, it's overall, I think, a pretty aggressive culture. So I think, if someone keeps staring at you, you just say, what the fuck are you looking at? Like, it's like, there's one thing, kind of look at you for a couple and then, turn away. But if you like, for the whole ride, I guess to a point, like, the fuck you looking at, like, the fuck? It's weird.
Is it a friendly look, or is it like a intense look?
It depends. If a girl looking at a guy, okay, that's different. But if a guy looking at another guy, it's like, you trying to do something or what? Like, it's just kind of, I don't know. It's weird. So that's why I kind of want to, guys, why is that? If you actually do that, what is the why?
staring like daggers at my friend. Like, I couldn't tell if she looked angry. I couldn't tell if she recognized her, if she was just so fascinated by my friend. I had no idea. And I could tell I kind of like glanced at the woman, but I don't know. I understand people watching. Like, I love a good, people watching, but not just like obviously staring at them or like.
Yeah, because like also like with the people, like sometimes like in the gym you kind of like just look at someone, but you see like they look at you kind of turn away, not to like like I do think it's considered rude here.
My favorite is if you're waiting in line and people will just turn all the way around to like just stare at you.
Your child needs these three.
Because to me, like if someone stares at you, then that means they want to say something too. Like, there has to be like a reason.
I don't know, people here have no shame, I guess. Speaking of lines, this is a mini culture shock. Speaking of lines, Italians like don't know how to make a line. It's funny to me because when Italians line up, it's really just like a group. They all crowd around. It's a crowd. There's no line. When I'm waiting in line somewhere, it makes me so anxious because I can sense that the people start to move up. Like they will stand right next to you in line. And it makes me anxious. I'm like, are they trying to get in front of me? Like, and sometimes they do. Sometimes I'm like, there is a line, but people just walk in front of you. I've been ordering and I've been in line at a cafe, and usually people will ask you, in Italian, are you in line? Yes, I appreciate that. But there are some people who will just like, they see you, they look at you, and they just don't care. But yeah.
That's not Italian. That's everywhere. I feel like there's always those type of people.
The whole lining up thing. It's not.
Here too, some people just feel entitled. They try to cut lines.
Some they do it. I never seen anyone do it like outright. What they do is sneaky.
Yeah, they sneaky.
They pretend they're looking and reading in the front, and then they try to
but,
go. And then I love he said, "Excuse me."
Yeah, but
like,
here,
what?
I don't know how it is. But here, somebody will check you. Somebody behind me. What
you go in front of me and like, "Excuse me."
I just feel like the way Italians make lines makes me so anxious because it's not like single file. It's just let's all crowd around. My next culture shock is just watching the way Italians.
Oftentimes, it's not like a young person. It's like an older person who's using their elderly like cuteness to.
And I also feel it's a lot of time women. They're trying to use the women privilege too.
Or argue. I think a lot of people who don't understand Italian think that Italians are always yelling or fighting, which it can sound like that, but actually I think they're just like very passionate about what they're talking about. Like if they are arguing, they're not really like fighting. Like I feel like people in the US, especially if you bring up like a political topic, like people get super angry. But here in Italy, you can have discussions. They just get very passionate about the point they're trying to make. So it sounds like they're yelling at each other. It sounds like they're mad, but like I don't think they actually are. They're just very heated and passionate. But I also have just seen them argue over tiny, tiny little things. They say things very confidently, even if they're not true, but they can be very convincing. They just are able to do that somehow. Another culture shock for me was the longer.
Again, I think it's everywhere. I don't know, because I've seen that here too plenty of times, so I don't think it's just an Italian thing.
Meal times, which I think a lot of Americans have heard by now. This culture shock whenever we go anywhere else in the world, because for us, lunchtimes and meal times are just like super fast. When I talk to Italians here and I tell them how a lot of people in the workplace eat lunch at their desks, maybe take like 10 to 15 minutes for lunch, like don't even take a break, but want to keep like working and eat in front of their computer. The Italians are just like mind blown because it's so wild to them. Most of the Italians I know have at least like an hour lunch break, and you go have lunch, you like get away from work, you're not sitting at your desk, you're actually taking time to enjoy lunch and like talk with your colleagues or be around other people.
I think the standard lunch break here is also an hour though, isn't it?
No. Hour is a long time.
How long is the standard?
It really depends where you work. I've seen like for professional, you can maybe get an hour, and then as less professional it is like 30 minutes, and the shortest is like 15-minute break. And also depends how long you sometimes don't get a break if you don't pass 7 hours. If you pass 7 hours, you have to get at least a 30-minute break. But if it's under 7 hours, you don't get breaks. You work straight. They only do the caveat is if you're a minor, they are required to give a minor at least 30-minute break.
Enjoy your time. A lot of Italians have like Sunday lunches with their families, and that takes a while. I feel like we don't have this kind of tradition in the US. I do feel like even if you go out to meals with your friends, like you're not spending a lot of time. It's very rushed. Even when you're out at restaurants in the US, the waiter will constantly come by and be like, do you need anything else? Do you need anything else?
Not true. We just went out. They let us sit there for 2 hours. Didn't even bring the check. We had to ask for a check. So
no, that's different because we were like 4 people, and they were letting us hang out.
Yeah, but
and relax.
okay, but that's what I'm saying. This is not the first time where they keep saying, "Oh, in the US they rush you, they'll make you like bring you a check immediately." It's
and
not
it was
true.
a Thursday too, so it was like so I think they would rush you out if it's a busier night.
Okay, I get that, but she just said generalize that as a fact, which is not. I just said it didn't happen to us. We sat there for 2 hours. I really had to chase the lady down.
I enjoyed that.
No, no. I'm saying
I don't want to be rushed out.
I understand, but she's saying that this happens all the time, which it doesn't. May have happened to her, maybe, but it's not like a given.
Feel very rushed. They'll even bring over the check while you're still eating. You're trying to finish your meal. They're kind of like, okay.
Oh no,
that's
not true.
Yeah,
that's not true. They let you eat your food at least. If they even come to, if you want dessert, do you want dessert?
Yeah.
And if you say you don't want dessert, they say, okay, I'm gonna bring you the check shortly. But they let you hang out. They don't try to make you go and leave. No.
A lot more laid back and chill. The meal times, you're not rushed at all. You can enjoy your food. You can chat. You have all these different courses, like the first course of pasta and stuff, and then your main.
What happened is they bring the food out too fast. We order appetizers, and we have like a big bed of nachos, onion rings. Those were the two we got. It was onion. It's nachos. You could feed like 4 people, even more, and an basket of onion rings, which was good, and. All of a sudden, okay, the ribs come with the salad, with the bread, with the drinks, and I was like, that's super. Even the waiter was like, I came too fast, did I? And you have to put the food in a warmer.
Yeah.
And so it's just a lot more relaxed. The next culture shock was certain, I guess, just like rules of being polite or like greeting. For example, when you go into a cafe or a store, you just walk in and you immediately say, ciao, buongiorno, like to immediately greet the people when you're walking in, which is very much like a courtesy, like politeness thing that you just do. And I feel like sometimes that happens in the US if it's like a small little coffee shop, but you wouldn't walk into like some big store and be like, hey everybody, that's just not a thing that we do in the US. And I feel like it's nice here because you walk in and you say buongiorno, like even if you're not directly looking at someone, you just say it, and then usually like all the baristas or the people in the restaurant or store will be like, ciao, buongiorno, that kind of thing. So it's nice, and I feel like if you don't do it, it's not like super frowned upon, but it's just like a courtesy thing that you do when you walk in somewhere. Also, just within their language, they have the formal form, like in Spanish and a lot of other languages. There's just a different form that you use when you're talking to someone older than you, or someone that you don't know, someone in a professional setting. So there's just that level of like formality that is built within the language. My next culture shock that is really frustrating actually is that most Italian places don't have screens in the windows, which is just insane to me because first off, air conditioning is not widespread in Italy. They do have air conditioning. I mean, I'm lucky enough that I literally have air conditioning in this room and in my apartment, but that's rare. I've lived in about 5 different apartments here in Bologna, and I've only had air conditioning in 2 of them. So air conditioning is not really popular here because it's also very expensive, and that's another culture shock about air conditioning not being everywhere. Someone who's from Arizona, air conditioning is a necessity. And
okay, I'm glad she said where she's from, because I was wondering where she's from.
Because here in the summer, you leave all your windows open, so of course your house just gets filled with bugs and mosquitoes. I've had wasps and bees inside my apartment because there's no screens on the window, and to me this just seems like common sense. Like, it would make things so much better. I would have my windows wide open if I had screens. Most Italian apartments don't have screens, and I'm sure
I don't know how I feel about it. The screens do annoy me because like you can't stick your head out, but it is a valid point. The bugs though,
the little ones will still go through, but we honestly haven't had that issue here at all. The other apartment we were in, we did, which is strange because here I've never been bitten. Never.
Yeah, I guess. Ideally for me, what would be a removable screen that is easy to take it out and put it back, because I do like when the windows don't have screens, because sometimes it's just nice to put like hang out a little bit,
but
put
then
your
also
head
for
out.
privacy too. It's nice for privacy to do.
But the screens do serve a purpose. Like the biggest, like in Lithuania and some, you cannot like. So you want to open your window, but you get so bitten, like the mosquitoes. It's ridiculous. So I mean, I guess the ideal for me would be a removable where you just kind of can take it out, eat simply, not like you don't have to sit 10 minutes to put it back in, but yeah.
You can get them installed. I just don't understand why it's not a common thing. I feel like it would solve so many problems. You wouldn't have all these bugs in your house all the time. I don't know. Again, who knows? If someone could give me a good reason why there aren't screens on the windows here, that would be great. And my next culture shock is that dryers are not very common here. Of course they exist. Some people have them. People
we just saw this in Germany reaction about the dryers.
always come at me when I say, oh, they don't have dryers here. Like, yes, of course they exist. You can get a dryer here. But all of the 5 apartments that I've lived in here, and including my apartment when I lived back in Rome, did not have a dryer. A lot of people don't have dryers here. Maybe people who have nice apartments and they're very wealthy, maybe they get a dryer, I don't know. It's mostly common to just hang dry your clothes here. And for me, since I don't have a balcony, I have to put my clothes on what's called like a stendino, which is basically a drying rack, I guess. And then my clothes will take like 2 days to dry, especially in the winter, like if you're not getting a lot of sun through the window and the clothes are just sitting there, they take a while to dry. So that can be frustrating because you have to think ahead and plan ahead. If you know you need certain clothes for a certain day or for a certain trip, you have to think, oh, I have to make sure I do my laundry ahead of time. So, but of course, dryers, there's positives and negatives. It would be more expensive, and also, you know, drying your clothes at high heat can probably destroy them faster. So, I guess, you know, good and bad. But I definitely am looking forward to having a dryer when I go back to the US. My next culture shock is that here in Italy, you basically have to do everything in person or maybe by phone. This is something that I really cannot stand because at least in the US, I would say that things are very efficient because you can do a lot of things digitally. Everything that I had to do for this apartment, I had to go to an office in order to do it. I wanted to set up internet. I had to go into the actual internet, like Vodafone store or fact.
Yeah, I would hate that. I can't stand that dealing with in-person business. Oh, I would hate that.
Fast web, and long story short, internet didn't work out, so I don't have internet in this apartment. Long story, don't want to get into it, but another fun.
So what do
thing
people
about
do?
You go in person?
Every time?
Yeah.
Organization and Italian stuff. Then setting up my trash tax payment, which here in Bologna, you also need to get a card to open up one of the bins for like the trash sorting. So when I talked to my landlord, she said, you have to go to this office, she gave me the address, and fill out this form so that way the tax payment will be under your name. And I said, oh, okay, great. So is that where I also get the card? She said, no, that's in a different office. Like, this is very typical for Italy. You can do one thing here, but then you have to go somewhere else to get another thing. And I'm just like, why is this not all in the same place? Or just like digitally? Like, it's a card. I feel like I should just be able to get that sent to me. Finally got that all figured out. I had to go to an office, pick up my card. I also will have to go back to that office because apparently they can't send me the bill because I don't have the ability to log into this like system that Italians use because I'm not Italian. So I'm gonna have to go back to the office when I have to pay my bill. I'm just not even thinking about that right now. And then of course to actually do the switch to all the utilities in my name, also had to go into an office. And
yeah, because imagine you get into an apartment, you have to switch the utilities to your name, the light, the internet. So for everything you have to go in person. That is wow.
And bring a bunch of documents, fill out a bunch of documents, and that was just a nightmare. But luckily, once I got it all figured out, I'm good to go. I don't want to think about when I have to do that again when I inevitably move. But really hate that nothing can be done online. Because, for example, when I moved in LA, when I switched the utilities to my name, everything can be done online super fast. You get an email confirmation. It's like, okay, now you're paying the bills kind of thing. Don't even get me started on the renewal for my permit to stay. I wish that stuff was also online. At least the renewal, I feel like, could be online, considering that the last time I went to the police station for my renewal, they literally told me that they lost my documents, the ones that I had sent through the post office. They lost them. So again, why can't this just be digital? My next culture shock revolves around food and the ideas around food, beliefs around food, attitudes.
I wonder if that's Europe or Italy, because I feel like
That's the first time we're hearing this.
I feel like that's maybe more Italy. I don't.
And this is the first time we're hearing this too.
Yeah. Because I feel like my parents come from Lithuania. They kind of say how it's not efficient, how Lithuania is more efficient than here, everything like digitally.
Yeah.
You can do everything digitally, whereas here is not as efficient. So to hear that Italy is even less than here, I don't know. I think this may be more an Italy thing.
Maybe she's in a small town. I don't know.
No, she's in Bologna.
Oh.
Food here are very different. Here, it's totally normal to eat pasta every day, and not in the sense of like, America saying like, oh, Italians just eat a ton of pasta every day. Like, you have a small portion, but it's very common for pasta to be your lunch every day, like different varieties, different forms of pasta, but it's totally fine to eat it every day. But I would say that what I've learned is that pasta is more of a lunch food because their idea is that you eat pasta, you eat this carb because, you're moving or you're on the go throughout the day. Wouldn't eat like a huge plate of pasta at night right before you're about to go to sleep. That's why it's totally fine to eat pasta because you use that energy throughout your day. Whereas in the US, I feel like a lot of the idea around pasta is like, oh, eating a lot of pasta is so bad for you, it's so unhealthy. Pasta and pizza, that's bad, don't eat a lot of that. Which I'm sure we have different kinds of pasta and like our pizza and all that kind of stuff because of our ingredients and the preservatives and stuff that we do put in our food. Like, yes, the quality is probably not as good as here. It's interesting how we view these different foods here in Italy versus the US. Also, one tiny thing
think it's more so the fact that lunch here is not really a thing. It's more a dinner. So you eat pasta for dinner. It is not the best thing for dinner. And two, people don't move here as much. So in Italy, as she said, you walk everywhere. You need the energy, you need the carbs, so it's not a big deal. Here, you eat that shit and you don't do nothing, you just get fat. So it's,
Like I said, I noticed that Italians eat salad maybe with their meal or after. Whereas in the US, it's pretty common to eat salad as your appetizer. You eat it before any of the other food. And here, a lot of Italians will eat it after, at the end. That's interesting. I don't know why. As far as breakfast, pastries are very common. It's very rare to get like a salty breakfast unless you're getting a salty croissant or something. Breakfast is usually very small. It's totally normal to eat like little cookies, these basically like hard little cookies. You don't eat a ton of them. But again, for me, this was just weird because eating cookies for breakfast just seems like a dream when I was a kid, but very strange for me. Also because in the US, I typically prefer salty breakfasts like eggs and avocado, toast. Now I mainly will eat like yogurt and some fruit or oatmeal, and then still sometimes eggs because I'm American and I still love my eggs. Sometimes just to start my day, I will have coffee and then a few of those little cookies. But it's still so weird that like here, my boyfriend and I will eat even like brownies or you can eat a piece of cake for breakfast, which is just like. But I mean, I guess in the US we have things like muffins, which is basically cake, or like a coffee cake. So we do have these pastries, I just feel like it's not as common. Like here they literally they have an aisle full of all these different types of breakfast cookies. Okay, we're almost getting to the end. I know there's a lot, but these are interesting, I hope. The next one is their belief of things that will make you sick. These still, to this day, I don't understand, and they actually...
Yeah, we have these on Refiner too. We talked about, I think it was Croatian video we did, they kind of talked about some of them.
Make me kind of mad, because I'm just like, what is the reasoning? Like, what is the logic behind this? Classic, wet hair, don't go outside with wet hair, don't, like, don't keep your hair wet for a while, because your neck will get stiff and will hurt. They have, like, a specific term for this that, like, apparently happens. I used to keep my hair wet all the time. I still do when I take a shower. Unless I'm going somewhere, I don't blow dry my hair immediately, and I've never suffered from a stiff neck. But, for example, I've had a friend who I saw one day, and she told me, oh, my neck is so stiff because yesterday I didn't dry my hair immediately after the shower. So, placebo effect, I don't know, like, if you think it, I don't know. Air conditioning is apparently the devil. Like, it's just, no. Because here in Italy, if you
with
do
my
have
parents,
air
every time when they
conditioning,
come, they get sick as soon as
as
they see it.
First of all, they won't have it very high. It typically is still pretty hot in there when they have air conditioning. So they don't blast it. Not that it needs to be blasted, but it's never used, like, super strong. And you definitely cannot sleep with air conditioning on. Because Italians think that if you sleep with air conditioning on, you will wake up sick, sore throat, you'll feel bad. If that's the case, I don't understand how I wasn't sick every single day of my life growing up in the US. I kind of get if the air conditioning is on way too high, like it's very cold, it's like a huge blast of air, you may wake up, like I could wake up kind of feeling like a dry throat just because you have this air blasting on you. And I definitely don't think I've gotten like a full-blown cold from air conditioning. So it's another interesting fact. And then finally, another huge culture shock for me was vacation here, and also that everything basically is shut down in August. I didn't realize that many places in Italy in August basically become a ghost town if they're not by the sea. Because Italians typically use this month to travel. Italians get way more vacation time than we do in the US. In the US, you're lucky if you get like 2 weeks of vacation.
In Lithuania, it's mostly, I think, July, the vacation
time.
Yeah, because the weather is the best in July.
That makes sense.
But here, it's very common for...
July and that Christmas week, from Christmas to New Year's, that whole week. Because, you get Christmas 2 days off, plus New Year's Day off. So you really need to take vacation for like 3 days. So people, they make the whole week out of like 3 days worth of vacation.
Stores, like family-owned stores, just to completely shut down for all of August. And like I said, there is literally no one in Bologna. It really becomes a ghost town. It is scorching hot. There's barely anyone here. I did not get the memo the first year I was here, so I felt like the only poor soul left in Bologna. I was walking around the streets like, what is happening? I didn't book any vacations because I didn't know that everyone left. So now I know. I hope you enjoyed this video. I definitely have a lot.
Okay.
Guys, of course, let us know your thoughts. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Join the Discord. And as always, share as much kindness as possible.